I'm going to be making cute, delicious, and classic Animal Crossing New Horizons recipes today, starting with our first category, fruit. I wanted to start with fruit because I feel like it is one of the most crucial decisions that you have to make when starting your new island. If you don't know, each island starts with 1 out of 5 different kinds of fruit trees, and that fruit tree is native to your island. Those fruits can be an apple, an orange, a cherry, a peach, or a pear. We're starting it off pretty simple with a cherry smoothie. This recipe requires two smoothies. This recipe requires 2 cherries. This recipe can be given to you by villagers or by the chef in the restaurant. And you can also get it in the Be a Chef DIY recipes pack as long as your native island fruit is a cherry. Here are all of the cherries. Now I'm gonna stick these in the freezer so that way we can have a nice icy smoothie, and once they're frozen, I'll be back. The cherries are frozen and now it is time to assemble the smoothie. Smoothies are not an exact science, so I am just going to eyeball everything, but the ingredients I have here are some whole milk, some yogurt, a banana, the cherries of course, and my blender. I am going to put in 1 banana, the cherries, and now I'm adding probably about 1/3 to 1/2 cup of non-fat Greek yogurt. Any yogurt will do. For this, I'm using milk, but you can also use juice. I like orange juice in smoothies too. And I'm gonna mix and blend. And there is the smoothie. Now I want to make this look as close to the image as possible. I have this mug, which I feel like looks pretty close to the one in Animal Crossing, but I also managed to find these paper straws, which I feel like really resemble the Animal Crossing recipe. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour in the smoothie and then add the straw. And I didn't have any cherries that were connected to each other, but I have assembled a cherry with some leaves that I'm going to hang off the straw, like so. Let me get us a different straw.
Boba straw.
Yeah, I know.
Boba straw.
We got some heavy duty straws here.
Hell yeah,
for taste testing.
Bruh. The cherry flavor doesn't really pop out. Like if you gave that to me, I wouldn't be able to say that it's a cherry smoothie.
Banana kind of just overpowers everything.
Yeah, it is good. It is a fruit smoothie. It is yummy.
I should use less banana, but I am very proud of how close it is to the recipe image in Animal Crossing because of my ultimate skill in crafting a perfect smoothie. I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. Bet you never saw that one coming.
Appearance-wise, 10 out of 10, easy. Flavor, I give it an 8.
Bodybuilding tip for my bodybuilding pals out there: throw some raw egg whites into a smoothie. You won't taste it. Immediate protein. It's great. Don't think too hard about it.
It's good. It might not be food safe advice. I'm not a doctor.
Next up, we have the peach tart. Similarly to the smoothie, there are variations of this depending on what fruit you use. But for the peach tart, it requires 1 flour, 1 sugar, and 1 peach. We obviously have quite a few more ingredients than that here, but I feel like if we stuck to just the lore accurate recipes, we would end up with something that isn't really great. I have my handy dandy KitchenAid, and I'm going to start by making the crust. I've got 1.5 cups of flour, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of sugar, and now I'm just going to stir that slightly. And now I'm going to add 1/4 cup of olive oil, 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. Oh. Okay. And 2 tablespoons of whole milk, and a 1/2 teaspoon of almond extract. Now I'm going to mix gently by stirring on low. And the dough is finished. Now I have a greased tart pan here, and I'm going to go ahead and add the dough to it. I'm gonna flatten it until it's about 1/8 of an inch thick. The tart dough is flattened with minimal fingerprints. So now I'm gonna go ahead and make the filling. I'm gonna start by chopping up a quadrillion peaches, and by a quadrillion, I mean 4. gonna go ahead and make the crumble that goes on top. 3/4 a cup of sugar, 1/4 a teaspoon of salt, and 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, as well as 2 tablespoons of flour. Now I'm going to mix this together until it is crumbly. Okay, this should hopefully be good. Now it is time to assemble. And here is my little design. As you can see, I tried to go in a circle for a while and then I kind of gave up towards the center. Now I'm going to add the sugar mixture to the top. I'm assuming this is going to melt down quite a bit. Here it is. All that's left now is to bake it. I will have you know, Drew just lied to my face. He told me that this looks pretty spot on next to the Animal Crossing recipe picture. I would like you to have a little close-up of this one more time and tell me he wasn't telling me the biggest lie.
It's close.
Go ahead and defend yourself.
It's close.
And also, it was a trap card. There was no easy answer for me to say there that would end it up positively for me.
There was no trap card. He just lied to my face and told me it looked pretty close.
It looks yummy and cozy and similar.
And he's using a spoon to eat it.
The best utensil.
A fork is the best utensil.
Back off.
Hey, comment down below, team fork or team worse.
Ooh.
Go ahead, give your review, give your opinion, and then I'll give the facts.
I think it's really yummy. Why are we wanting to kill me today? I love like a almost graham cracker doughy crust, and this is it. Spot on, banging. The peaches are yummy. Peaches are my favorite fruit ever. So this is really good.
I think the taste was really good. The only thing I might have changed is I feel like the peaches needed to be peeled. There was a slight chew to the skin of the peach, and I'm used to peaches being completely peeled in desserts, so that could just be me.
I think it's a 9 out of 10 for me. I really like that.
I'm gonna give it, I think, an 8 out of 10. It is time to move on to orange marmalade. Now there are plenty of recipes for jellies and jams in Animal Crossing. However, my favorite fruit is an orange. So you know I had to do orange marmalade. To make it in-game, it requires 3 oranges, but for our recipe, we'll be using 4. The in-game recipe can again be achieved from a villager or through a message bottle, as well as completing a vacation home request in Happy Home Paradise. Now, I am screaming, crying, and throwing up because I forgot to get a lemon. This recipe does require some lemon zest, which if you've ever cooked with lemon zest before, you know that it just elevates that dish to a level that lemon juice does not. So I'm very sad about that, but I do have lemon juice. I also do have a wee bit of a craft in mind for this one, so stay tuned for that. But without further ado, let's make the marmalade. So I'm starting by cutting these oranges up into 8 equal slices, cutting off the ends first. And now we are going to take this over to the food processor. So I have avoided using this food processor for a really long time, mainly because it is super heavy and it was up in a cabinet far away and I just didn't feel like getting it out. But today I'm going to be using it for the first time. So I'm going to start by loading in the oranges. Now I'm going to add the rest in here. And then I put the lid on and start processing. Oh, I'm just pulsing it right now. Might have to intervene a little bit here. And I'm gonna mix this a little bit. And it did say to process this with all the rinds on and everything. Let's try again. Give it a little mixy mix. It looks like it's doing a good job though. I can see why people use food processors instead of blenders sometimes, because this is getting a very good rough chop, whereas a blender just kind of liquefies everything. Try not to stick my fingers in here because of the blades. Is this normal to have to mix it around? I don't know. Look at it go. Oh yeah. How are we doing? Look at that. This seems to be good, so now I'm going to go ahead and move over to the stove. So I have a large saucepan here over medium heat, and I'm going to go ahead and add all of the oranges. Now we're gonna go ahead and add the juice of 1 lemon, which is around 3 tablespoons. Now I'm adding a 1/3 cup of water and 4 cups of sugar. That is a lot of sugar. Now I'm just going to stir well and then bring the entire mixture to a boil. Normally I would take out these giant pieces. However, I feel like having a big candied piece of orange sounds absolutely delicious, so I'm keeping it in there. All right, so the mixture's starting to bubble. I'm gonna reduce the heat a little bit and keep it on a low simmer for around 35 minutes. And I'm gonna stir pretty consistently so I can avoid any sort of burning. Now while the marmalade is cooking over here, I want to move on to the craft. The orange marmalade is presented in a really cute jar, so I want to actually recreate that as closely as I can. And I have a few items here to help me achieve that. First, I have these little glass jars. Oh boy. All right, I cleaned up all the glass. Resuming our craft here. I also have this fabric that I think matches really closely, and I'm going to be making the labels with some paper and markers. Starting with the labels, I'm going to sketch out a rough shape. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and add the outline. I'm gonna continue using my little straight edge here. I'm gonna do it on this side, actually. And here we have the label. Now I want this label to be laminated, so I'm actually going to lay a piece of tape over it. Like so. And here is the finished label. Now moving on to the fabric, I'm going to put the pretty side down and use another jar to trace a circle of fabric out. I'm gonna do about an inch wider radius than the jar itself, so we can have that frill that goes around the marmalade jar. Okay, so I did have to trim it a little bit, but here is what it looks like. And now the marmalade is cooled, so it's time to fill the jar. I do also want to protect the fabric a bit from the marmalade, so I am gonna put a layer of plastic wrap down before I add the fabric. It is a work of art.
Yes, it does look perfect. It looks spot on.
That is some thick marmalade.
Yeah, this is a big boy.
Did I make a mistake?
Damn.
This is gonna get, I think, a solid. You know, this is another one I'm gonna put on the 10 out of 10 turnip scale because of the high quality craftsmanship that went into the presentation of the marmalade. Not only is it a good flavor, but it looks good too.
I give it 10 turnips out of 10 too. Put that shit on a biscuit, you got a nice warm southern breakfast right there. And it's a good thing because we gifted it to all of our neighbors before trying it, and it's really good.
Next recipe. So now I'm moving on to the recipe in this category that I am probably the most excited for, mixed fruits sandwich. The in-game recipe takes 2 flour, 1 pear, 1 orange, and 1 peach. Again, this recipe can be obtained from Villagers, the message bottle, or the restaurant. And the reason I am the most excited for this recipe is because I get to make shokupan for the first time. Now, shokupan, if you don't know, is a Japanese milk bread. It's a sweet, milky, fluffy bread. The mixed fruits sandwich in Animal Crossing, I believe, is modeled after the furutsu sando in Japan. If the dough becomes slack and gooey, you've kneaded the dough for too long. All right, well, the recipe is saying that I kneaded this for too long, even though I did literally exactly as they said. We're just gonna move forward with what we have. Now I'm going to perform what this recipe describes as the slam and fold method. All right, my camera died there, but now I have the dough in a greased bowl covered in plastic wrap, and I'm going to let it sit for around 90 minutes to triple in size. All right, this has definitely grown in size. I'm dusting some flour on top, and I poke a hole in the middle. And it said if it doesn't close up immediately that the dough is ready. Now I'm going to dust my work surface again and pour the dough on top of it. Now I'm going to divide the dough into 3 equal pieces, which is roughly 225 grams.
Bruh.
Oh, okay.
Bruh.
Okay, well, okay, whatever. You know, it's close enough. Now I'm going to form these into a ball. And now I'm going to cover these and let them rest for another 15 minutes. First, I'm going to shape it into a rectangle. Here's my rectangle. I'm folding it in thirds lengthwise. And now I'm going to fold down these 2 corners and start tucking the rest of the dough. Pinch to keep it closed, and the first roll is done. Now I'm going to do the same to the other 2 pieces of dough. And now in my greased shokupan mold, I'm going to add in my little rolls that I just made. And now I'm going to cover this and let it rise for another hour. Okay, I may have let the dough rise for a little bit too long. Also, it's so sticky. Why is it so sticky? The dough has risen pretty high. I'm gonna tap it a little bit and, oh no. Okay. Stop lowering. Oh God. Okay, it stopped. I'm gonna let it sit for a little bit longer here while the oven preheats, but it needs to rise to like right there. The dough has risen to about where it's supposed to. Ignore the top of that, I kind of messed it up. I'm going to slide on the top of my shokupan. Slide on the top, and now I'm going to stick it in the oven for about 35 minutes at 415. 25 minutes, not 35. Okay, so the bread is out of the oven and it has been sitting and cooling for a little bit. And here is what it looks like. It looks good. However, I'm pretty sure that this was supposed to rise all the way to the top, but I think it looks pretty good, and I'm gonna let it cool, and then we will cut and assemble the sandwich. Now I'm going to wrap them in some plastic wrap. I also drew on a line so I know which way to cut the sandwich. And I've transferred this to a plate because I'm going to put another one on top to gently compress the sandwiches. And now I'm gonna put this in the fridge for an hour or up to overnight. All right, so this has been in the fridge overnight. I just have to cut it in half. Oh yeah. And I almost forgot to mention one of the most important parts of this recipe. As you can see in the photo, there are these toothpicks, and although I couldn't find the exact ones, I did find something pretty cute. So I'm gonna go ahead and add those to the sandwich. This recipe took so long. I bet it tastes delicious. So let's give it a taste. It is a delicious sandwich, and the bread is very good. However, for a shokupan, it is not as close as I would like it to be. It's a little bit more crumbly. I did follow the recipe exactly, and I had the exact same settings and the exact same KitchenAid as they did, but it is what it is.
It does taste similar to shokupan that we've had in Japan, where it's more of like a sweeter bread. It's not like as sweet as Hawaiian bread is, but yeah, the texture I think is the main drawback compared to a real Japanese shokupan. However, it's very delicious. Shokupan, more like so good pan. 7 out of 10.
Because I know this is not the correct texture for shokupan, I'm docking it a few points. I think I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. We're moving on to our savory dish for the next fruit, Tomates al Ajillo. The in-game recipe requires a whopping 3 tomatoes, but for this oily, garlicky recipe, we're gonna need a couple more ingredients. I'm gonna start by cutting up the tomatoes. I'm gonna keep the pieces pretty large because I don't want the tomatoes to fall apart while I'm cooking. I also have some parsley here that I'm going to take the leaves off and then chop up. And then I'm going to set this aside for later. We're gonna have a problem here. This recipe is very garlic centric, and as you probably know,
I love garlic.
the total amount of garlic for this recipe calls for 12 cloves. I am going to add significantly more than that. You do not have to. I'm basically doubling the garlic in the recipe. To this skillet, I am also going to add about a half a cup of olive oil. And by about, I mean exactly. And I think this recipe is normally made with shrimp, but because I'm doing tomatoes, I want to still add a little bit more of that shrimp flavor. So I have some salted shrimp stir fry here, and I'm just gonna add a little spoonful of that. This is more of a salty fermented shrimp, but I can assure you it tastes really good. I'm also going to add some red pepper flakes. Here I have some gochugaru, which is a Korean red pepper flake. Just a little pinch. And now I'm gonna cook this until the oil is very aromatic, which is gonna take about 10 minutes. While that's cooking over there, I'm going to prep my tomatoes as well. I'm going to add another 4 cloves, AKA 8 cloves of minced garlic, or whatever's left in here. Ugh, get in there. And I'm also adding about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm also going to add about a 1/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda and some salt. Stir that to combine. So this has been cooking for about 10 minutes, and I'm going to fish out these big pieces of garlic. Here I have 4, AKA 8 pieces of garlic sliced thinly. Thinly is a subjective term. And I'm going to add this to the oil. Then I'm going to cook this for about a minute. And now I'm going to add the tomato slices. I'm going to cook these for about a minute on each side. And because there is water in tomatoes, I am going to cover this to prevent any splashing. These tomatoes are pretty cooked, so I'm going to go ahead and add about 2 tablespoons of parsley and some sherry vinegar, I think about 2 teaspoons. I'm also adding some salt almost forgot. Tomates al Ajillo. Lots of garlic. I'm very excited.
Oh yeah. Kind of feels like cheating.
No.
I'm gonna throw out a preemptive 9 out of 10.
Whoa. I will let you know, I doubled the amount of garlic.
I know.
Oh.
It's not too oily. Be good with some like baguette.
I feel like doubling the garlic was a good choice.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10.
It's really good. It's a 9 out of 10, close to 10.
In terms of appearance, I didn't get as close as I had hoped with how Animal Crossing presents it. That's mainly because I used the wrong pan. If I would have used my cast iron, it would have been fine.
Well, also these goobers are making tomato-based products in cast iron.
Do you hate your seasoning, bro?
Okay. I feel like it only makes sense to follow up fruits with some classic veggie recipes. Kabu Ankake I am particularly interested in because I have never in my life had a turnip, and I'm really curious what it's gonna taste like. So we're getting started with the first vegetable recipe, which is Kabu Ankake, I think is how you say it. This recipe can be obtained from Daisy May. She will send you the recipe in the mail after you purchase some turnips. And this recipe in-game requires 10 turnips to make. Now the recipe I found is kind of a weird one. It's on Tumblr and it kind of just gave me the ingredients but no amount of anything. So we're gonna be winging it quite a bit for this recipe. Also, it said to use Japanese turnips, which are kind of more like a salad turnip where they can be eaten raw. They're just, I guess, sweeter and more tender. I only have good old American turnips and they have to be cooked. It did say that you can substitute Japanese turnips for daikon, and I actually grow daikon in my garden, so I harvested a couple of those and we will try those as well as the turnips. It also has a mince on the inside, and it looks like it's traditionally or commonly a chicken mince, but I wanted to add a little bit more flavor, so I'm gonna do part chicken, part pork. However, if you cannot have pork, chicken should work fine. I also have a few more ingredients to go in the mince, like mushrooms, breadcrumbs, green onions, and then all the ingredients here for the stock as well. I wanna see if my cooking skills are high enough that I can successfully wing a meatball. Chicken mince. Now the recipe, which I will link below, suggested to use an 80-20 mix. However, I'm just gonna use all of it because I don't wanna like package up raw meat again to use later. I'm just gonna cook it all now. And also more pork sounds more good. The recipe also suggested to add eggs. Now we have some breadcrumbs, my favorite Japanese style breadcrumbs. Just gonna add those. And now I'm gonna move on to some chopping. All right, so I got the tops on all of these, and now we're going to go over to the stove and steam them. For steaming, we need to first make an, which is the stock that is inside of the pot. And that consists of an unknown amount of soy sauce, mirin, water, salt, and dashi. Now you can get dashi stock. However, I just have like dried little pellets. So I'm gonna add that in there and just dissolve it. Might add a little bit more water for that. I am also going to add a little steaming rack in here. because I don't want the bottoms of the turnips to burn. It's a little bit small for the pot, but it's the only one I have. And now I'm just going to go ahead and add them in. Okay, so now I'm gonna cover this and let it steam for 20 to 30 minutes. Okay, so I have the cooked turnips here. I am realizing now that I may have burnt the sauce a little bit. Let's see. Okay, that's not so bad. All right, now I'm gonna thicken it up a little bit. Oh, okay. I'm gonna thicken it up a little bit with some cornstarch. I think this is ready to start plating. Now I have an idea here. So this is the original top for the turnip, but to make it match a little bit better to the photo, I want to do maybe the head of the daikon instead. And then I also have some freshly chopped green onions to top it with. Daisy May, do not let us down.
Cut's very soft.
Yeah, oh my gosh, hold on, let me get a smaller piece, I guess. Oh my gosh, I forgot to add some of the braise. Well, the photos don't have braise, but this will. Now we will try it again. That is so good.
That's really good.
That is so good.
I had no idea what a turnip would taste like. It's kind of like slightly onion flavored potato texture. Mm-hmm. It's good.
I mean, even without the braise, it was delicious. It was steamed in all of that flavor, so that's why it was like somewhat brown. This is probably one of the best things I've ever made.
Oh wow. 10 turnips out of 10.
This gets 10
Easy.
Kabu out of 10. Let's give it a try with the daikon.
What do you think, Mom and Dad?
It's very similar. I think the turnip had a bit more flavor.
Yeah, just there.
You know, it's just there to hold the meat. This is delicious, amazing.
I like turnips now.
Salad stuffed tomato. This recipe can be obtained from any of the villagers either when they're cooking in their house or when you receive a message bottle on the beach. You can also get this recipe from the chef working at the restaurant in Happy Home Paradise. In-game, this recipe requires 3 tomatoes. I'm starting with the avocado. These aren't as ripe as I would like them to be, but I don't really have an option, so I'm just gonna cut into them and hope for the best. Ooh, yeah, these are pretty rubbery. Wow. This might just be a salad that does not have a lot of avocado in it, because I don't think that that one is ready. Now I'm going to chop up a bell pepper. I'm just going to cube these. I'm going to also chop up a tomato to put into the salad that's going to be stuffed into a tomato. Tomatoception. Now we have some cilantro. It is a little bit wilty because it has been in the fridge for a while. I'm chopping it up a little bit. Finally, we have a sweet onion, and I'm not gonna use all of this. I think I'm gonna go ahead and use about a quarter of this. Oh my God, I did not think that was gonna make my eyes water that much. So we have the salad here, a lot less avocado than I was hoping for. It is what it is. And now I have to hollow out the tomatoes. This is kind of similar-ish to the Kabu. However, I don't think we really need the lids. Actually, so I'm just gonna try to hollow this out the best that I can. Actually, I did need to keep the lid, but I have already eaten half of this, so we're just gonna have one lid. All right, so now I just gotta try to hollow these out. Can I do this like I did the turnip? Kind of. The thing is with tomatoes, they're so much squishier on the inside. It is a mess over here, so I'm not bringing you close up. You're just gonna have to stay far away because you don't need to see this. One down, one to go. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add the dressing. It's just some lime juice, salt, and pepper, and mix it up. So I have the hollowed out tomatoes, and I'm literally just putting the salad in there. And then we only have one lid. I think it looks pretty close to the in-game recipe, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, it does.
And also, I'm not completely sure how this is supposed to be eaten. So we're just gonna eat it with a spoon.
A spoon? You don't want to knife it? And like,
Well, it's,
scoop?
no, because then the salad's just gonna go everywhere.
Oh, okay. Go for it. I'll catch up. Or not. Tastes like a dry salsa.
I really like the light dressing. The only critique I have about this is how am I supposed to eat the tomato? I feel like I cut it. No, no, no. I'm gonna cut it and the salad's gonna fall everywhere. Okay. Yeah, so that's how they want you to eat it. Mmm. So good. I'm gonna give this a solid 8 out of 10 turnips.
I too am in the 8 out of 10 turnips category. That was exactly my number I was thinking.
Next up on the vegetable list, we have potato galette. I hope I'm saying that second word correctly. This is another recipe that can be obtained from villagers or the message bottle. And in game, this recipe takes 2 flour and 3 potato. Now the recipes that I was looking at online for a potato galette did not include flour. It's mainly just potatoes and some cheese. So I'm not really sure where that flour is coming in. We're just gonna assume that like this Parmesan, maybe it's got a little flour on it. You don't know. That would be really bad for people with a gluten allergy. We are also enlisting the help of my handy dandy mandolin. Absolutely terrifying to use. Drew says the Frenchman he found on YouTube says it's galette. Oh my God. Oh my God. I don't give up.
I will cut these thin.
My arms will regret it. All right, so the potatoes are fully sliced. My arm is very sore. Now I'm gonna move over to the stove to heat some stuff up in the skillet. So we have the pan heating up here on medium heat. To this pan, I'm going to melt 2 tablespoons of butter and then 4-ish tablespoons of olive oil. Now I'm gonna add some garlic, about, you know, a lot. I also added some finely chopped rosemary and it's been simmering for a while. So now I'm going to transfer it to a bowl. I'm keeping about 2 tablespoons of butter in here and I'm taking out all or most of the garlic and herbs. I just have to layer these potatoes on here. I'll make sure they're all flat, but we're not doing any sort of pattern here because that would take me an eternity. All right, those taters look good. They're not aesthetic like you may have hoped, but we have the taters on the stove. It said to heat it up again until the bottom starts to brown. And then it says to evenly coat with the oil mixture. All right, now I just gotta wait. All right, so this has been cooking on the stove top long enough. I can't really tell if it's starting to brown or soften on the bottom, but I can hear it sizzling, so I'm just gonna assume. And I'm gonna go ahead and put it in the oven. The undo at 420 fundo. Oh, it's heavy. Okay, we're gonna need a second mitt. Get her in there. So it doesn't look exact compared to the recipe in Animal Crossing. However, that's because I didn't really have a plate that would match it very well. Also, I didn't want to risk taking it out of this pan because it looks so pretty in there right now. So that's my excuse. That's a crispy potato galette.
It looks really hot.
It is toasty too.
Chloe eats blazing hot food like a toddler with just zero self-preservation.
It is hot.
Texture's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The potatoes are so crispy. I will say it is a little bit plain.
Yeah.
Oh, you know why? We're supposed to add freaking Parmesan cheese. I forgot the salt, the pepper, and the Parmesan. The Parmesan was optional.
The herbs on it are doing some heavy lifting on giving some flavor, and there's not a lot of it.
With the Parmesan, that adds a little bit. I do like that. I feel like there needs to be layers of salt, or like it needs to be salted before I layer everything on, because the salt's just kind of on the top. So I think I'm gonna give it 6 out of 10.
Same page.
Yeah. Okay.
I had that in the noggin before she said it. 6
Yep.
turnips out of 10.
6 turnips out of 10.
It's not the star of any show, but it's pretty good.
Finally, the category I'm sure you've been waiting for, fish. If you have played Animal Crossing New Horizons, you know that a huge part of it is catching fish. And not just casually catching fish, you have to catch
All 80 fish.
if you're a completionist like me. But today I'm only focusing on a couple different kinds of fish and some really cool recipes to go with them. Now we're... We're moving on to the Aji Fry. I want to say ahi so bad, but it's aji. This is an absolutely delectable looking dish in Animal Crossing that requires 1 flour and 1 horse mackerel. No, it is not a horse, it is a fish. I was confused too. You can actually obtain this recipe in Animal Crossing by catching a horse mackerel. And the horse mackerel isn't that difficult to find. It can be found all day long, all year round. I did not want to cut up the mackerel, and they came in full fish-shaped mackerel, so I needed to get the guts out and the head off. I asked Drew to do it, actually. Thank you to Drew. I know that the butterflied mackerel look a wee bit chopped. That is just how it's gonna be. It's getting deep fried regardless, so it doesn't really matter how it looks. It just matters how it tastes. So I have the little battery station set up here. First, I'm gonna coat it in some flour. I like to make sure I'm patting it in just to get a real nice thick coating. Now we're going on to the egg, and now the panko. And again, making sure that I pat the panko into the mackerel. Now I'm going to do the exact same process to the other 2 fillets. And the mackerel are ready to fry, so let's go to the stove. I think that is hot enough for me, so I'm gonna go ahead and put in the first fillet. Then I'm going to cook it for 1 minute on each side. First fillet is done. Now to do the same to the other 2. Now it's time to plate up. The Animal Crossing image looks like it has a tomato. I don't have any tomatoes left, but I do have an orange. So we're gonna go ahead and add that. I should be adding a lemon really, but don't have any of those either. Next up, I have some tamari soy sauce. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of that. Oh, a lot of bit of that. And finally, instead of shredded cabbage as pictured in the image, I'm going to add some rice. Let me try to shape it into a mound. Voila, it's taste test time. Where's Drew, you ask? That's a good question. Can I just eat an entire, can I just bite into it? A lot fishier than I had expected. It didn't smell super fishy when I was cooking it, but it tastes pretty fishy. Not in a bad way. I like fish, so I don't mind that it's fishy. I just thought I'd let you know. So I have soy sauce here, but one of the suggested toppings for the horse mackerel was Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire sauce. So I'm gonna try that. I almost like it more than the soy sauce. I feel like the soy sauce makes the fish pungently fishy, whereas the Worcestershire sauce makes the fish more of a balanced flavor. I think I'm gonna give this a solid 7 out of 10. It's above average because it's fried. Sea bass pie, the recipe that I am probably the most intimidated by in this entire video. Not because the ingredients are difficult to cook or it's a hard ingredient to find. No, it's because of this fish. I am already not the best at baking things. I tend to stick with just simple cookies, simple cupcakes, but when it comes to actually presenting something beautifully in a baked good or dish, I tend to fail quite a few times. I will try my best. Now this dish in Animal Crossing requires 3 flour and 1 sea bass to make. The recipe itself can be obtained by catching a sea bass. The sea bass is notoriously a very common fish to catch and can be caught all day long and at any season. So first over here I have a pot of salted water and I have a chopped up russet potato. Oh my gosh. That I'm going to boil until it is fork tender. And then to this pan, I'm going to melt about 2 tablespoons of butter. I'm gonna add a little bit of minced garlic, Okay, this is a little too hot. And here I have my sea bass fillet, which I have skinned. In this pan, I'm gonna work on sauteing some of the veggies. So first, I'm gonna add some onions to the olive oil and get these caramelizing. Since I want to caramelize these, I'm gonna keep the temperature on medium-low. Ideally, you would keep it on low because low and slow is best for caramelizing onions, but that takes like 30 minutes and I just don't have that time right now, so we're gonna do more of a medium-low. This fish is about done, so I'm going to go ahead and take it off the pan and set it to the side. And then I'm gonna go ahead and melt a bit more butter in this pan. Probably another tablespoon or so. Now I'm going to start making a roux. So I have here 15 grams of cake flour, and if you don't have cake flour, you can also do 13 grams of regular flour and 2 grams of cornstarch. I think I also forgot to mention, but the recipe I'm using for this sea bass pie is specifically an Animal Crossing sea bass pie recipe. It goes into good detail on how to actually make the crust. So if you're looking to make this yourself, I would highly suggest checking this recipe out, and I will be linking it in the description below. All right, now here I have 250 milliliters of whole milk that I'm going to start adding in very slowly, and making sure to fully mix in before I add any more. All right, so this is pretty thick, so I'm gonna go ahead and season it with some salt and pepper. And then here I have some hondashi powder, and I'm going to add about a half of a teaspoon, and then mix all of that in. All right, so these onions are caramelized enough for my liking. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add some peas and carrots. Now I'm going to go ahead and add the stir-fried veggies to the sauce that we made earlier. And I have the sea bass fish fillet that I have broken up, and I'm gonna add that as well. I'm gonna go ahead and mix that. And this is our filling. However, I do have these potatoes ready, so I'm gonna make some mashed potatoes really quick. To this bowl, I'm going to add a little bit of butter, as well as a splash of the whole milk. And then I'm going to go ahead and mash these up. Now it is time to assemble the pie. So here I have an oiled up pie pan. I'm gonna start by adding the mashed potatoes. Now that I have the potatoes layered, I'm gonna go ahead and add the fish mixture. Next, I'm going to add a layer of mozzarella. Now it is time to craft the crust. I'm gonna start by adding an entire piece to the top here. Now I'm going to trim around the circumference, leaving about a centimeter on the outside. And I also have an egg wash here that I'm gonna go ahead and paint over the entire top of this pie. And now I'm going to start with the design. So I'm gonna start by laying down 3 stripes across the pie and then trimming these. Now I'm going to attempt to crimp the edges of the pie. Now it's time to make the fish. So first I see the little tail, the body of the fish. I'm going to add some wash to that as well. Now I'm going to add the rest of the details. Last but not least, the olive slices. I think it turned out way better than I thought it would, and I'm very excited to bake this and try it. So let's put it in the oven. I don't want to break into it, but I have to try it. Oh my God. The balance of the mashed potatoes with the vegetables and the fish, it's just like, And I am so proud of how I did with the little shape and stuff. That wasn't so difficult. 10 out of 10 sea bass pies. This is so good. Poke. This is one of my personal favorite dishes in real life. It should be a relatively simple recipe because we don't have to really cook anything other than the rice. It's relatively easy to make in Animal Crossing as well, as long as you have
1 salmon and 1 tomato.
Now, I did look far and wide, high and low. I was unable to find sushi grade salmon, but I wanted to still do raw fish, so I decided to settle for some tuna. You can just pretend it's a salmon. Please don't be mad. I also do not have a tomato. So I don't have a salmon or a tomato for this recipe that requires only a salmon and a tomato. I'm sorry. I'm going to start by chopping up some green onions. Now I'm going to set these off to the side and cut up my block of tuna. I'm going to cut these into small-ish bite-sized cubes. And now I'm going to transfer these to a bowl so we can prepare the marinade. To the bowl, I'm going to add some soy sauce, rice vinegar, sesame oil, red pepper flakes, some of the green onions, and some sesame seeds. The poke bowl, made with 0 out of 2 of the ingredients from the Animal Crossing recipe, but I think it will be just as good. I laid it out exactly as the Animal Crossing photo shows. That marinade is really good. It's coating the tuna really well, and then the other ingredients balance it out. If you don't like poke, you need to go try it again, because yes, you do. I am gonna have to give this a 10 out of 10. Super easy to make, super delicious. Next recipe. Next up, we have Kere Nosuk, aka simmered flatfish. Now this recipe in Animal Crossing is made with 1 dab. The dab can be found in the sea all day long from mid-fall to mid-spring. Now, when I was at the grocery store, I could not find any sort of flatfish. I looked for dab, I looked for flounder, I went on Google and I searched flatfish breeds, and I couldn't find anything. So I had to settle for what they had an abundance of, which was milkfish, which is not a flatfish to my knowledge. I think it'll taste good no matter what. I'm gonna start by peeling and prepping the ginger. Let's get rid of all these shavings. It says to thinly slice this ginger, so I am going to just cut a few rounds here. And then I'm going to chop these rounds into little matchsticks. Okay, so I have everything prepped here. I'm going to take my milkfish and head over to the stove. Okay, so I have the pan heating up over medium heat, and I'm going to go ahead and prepare the seasoning. I'm gonna go ahead and add 3 tablespoons of mirin, 2 tablespoons of cooking sake, which is just some old sake that has been in my fridge, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of sugar, and 150 milliliters of water. And now I'm gonna let this come to a boil. So it's simmering. I'm going to go ahead and add in the milkfish belly, skin the side down. And I'm also going to add in some of the ginger. And then I'm gonna cover this until the fish is fully cooked through. I am going to uncover this and flip the fish because I want the other side to get the nice juices on it as well. All right, so this is done cooking. I'm going to go ahead and take it off the heat and let it cool a bit and then plate it up. I have some shiso leaves here, and I'm going to place 1 of the fillets on top and also pour a little bit of the sauce. And finally, top with some of the ginger matchsticks. The Kere Nosuk, which isn't actually flatfish, is finished.
This milk is flat. This fish is flat. I don't see any milk.
The fish has been flattened. It is a flat fish, but it is not a flatfish.
Was it milked?
I did milk it prior.
Oh God.
A little overcooked. However, it is very good. The recipe itself is delicious. So separating the recipe that will be in the description, this is getting a 6 out of 10 from me.
I would give it a 7 out of 10. There's big potential in that recipe. I think if that was well cooked, it would be...
And a flatfish?
Flatfish, whatever. This tastes good. If it was cooked a little less, I think this could be really, really good.
Next up, we have seaweed soup. Now in Animal Crossing, the only ingredient for this soup is 2 seaweed, so it doesn't exactly have a fish in it, but I'm putting it in this category because a lot of the real life ingredients do include some fish or fish-centered things. So I have some dried seaweed here, and I'm going to start by soaking it. I do only need about half of this. And then to a separate bowl, I'm going to rinse and rehydrate the shrimp as well. I've added some hot water and I'm gonna let this soak for like 5 minutes. Now I have some Napa cabbage and I'm just going to cut this up into manageable bites. This is about what I'm looking for. I will not be using all of this cabbage. I only need about 10 ounces of it. This recipe calls for pork, just any pork, so I decided to go with bacon because that's what I had on hand. I'm going to go ahead and place some of this bacon on the cutting board. And I'm just kind of going with whatever amount feels right here. And then I'm just gonna use my cabbage knife to chop this all up. Now I'm going to go ahead and prep the marinade for the pork. 1 part cornstarch and 1 part water. And then I'm going to also add about a teaspoon-ish of salt and then mix that all together. Now I'm going to add the pork to the marinade and let that sit for about 10 minutes as well. And now the soup is done. Kind of looks like a lot is going on, but I'm excited to try it. I will say it doesn't look quite like the Animal Crossing recipe, mainly because that recipe looks like it only has seaweed in it, and the recipe that I used had much more than that.
Bacon and seaweed. Unexpected power combo.
Yeah, very good. What's your rating?
I think I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. That's really good. And the appearance, although not perfect, is very close.
I had to take out quite a bit of liquid so that way the pot wouldn't overflow. And I think I wish it had a little bit more broth to it. So I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10 just because of that. I like more broth. Actually, I'm gonna give it an 8.
That's bad. That's bad. Okay.
I'm gonna give it an 8 because it's my fault that I took out the broth. It's not the recipe's fault. Now we are moving on to curry, and not just any curry, Squid Ink Curry. The recipe in game takes 3 flour and 1 squid, and you can get this recipe in Animal Crossing by catching a squid. As you can see, my recipe has quite a few ingredients, including squid ink. Specifically a cuttlefish. We're gonna start by frying up some spices. So I'm gonna add some oil. I'm gonna add a cinnamon stick, a star anise, and a bay leaf. Now that this is sizzling, I'm going to add a Thai green chili, as well as in my beautiful handmade bowl, a 1.5 cups of onion. Maybe a little more. We eyeball things around here. Minced ginger and minced garlic. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add the spices. I'm first adding Kashmiri chili powder, turmeric, fennel, cumin, and allspice. And if you want any sort of exact measurements for this, I would suggest checking out the recipe that I link below for pumpkin curry. And I'm also going to add some salt. Now I'm going to add about a 1.5 teaspoons of brown sugar and a teaspoon of lemon juice. And now I'm going to add about 3 cups of potatoes, and as you can see, I have a really cool purple potato in here. That is just because I grabbed one from my garden. I'm also going to add in the tomatoes. I have about 3 chopped up tomatoes here, and I'm going to cover this and let it cook for about 5 minutes. Now I have a 1.25 cups of water here, and I'm going to go ahead and add the cuttlefish ink to that. I've never actually used cuttlefish ink before, so I'm not really sure how much I should be putting in there. But let's start with about a tablespoon. Is it going to dissolve is the question. It's got quite this fishy smell to it, so I think I'm gonna keep it at that, and if I have to, I'll add a little bit later. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and add in the cuttlefish ink water, and then I'm also going to add about 1 cup of coconut milk. And then give that a stir. Kind of ugly color, I will not lie. I can't really taste the ink that much, so I think I'm gonna add a little bit more. I'm gonna add about another tablespoon. Now I'm going to continue to cook until the potatoes become fork tender. This is pretty much done. The potatoes are cooked all the way through and it has thickened quite a bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and heat up some naan and then plate this. This is my naan of choice. You know I had to pick the garlic one. I'm very proud of this one.
It's cool. It's kind of scary. This is retribution for that one sturdy recipe that we didn't have squid ink for, and all the comments were telling us how wrong we were to not do that.
Wow. That is magical. Can't
It
stop
slaps.
eating it.
10 out of 10.
What'd you say?
It slaps 10 out of 10.
It slaps. I typically am not the biggest fan of curry. It's not that I don't like it, it's just I never will choose it. But however, this is really, really good. So I think I'm gonna give this a solid 9 out of 10. Delicious and nutritious as well.
We can cut that out.
Next recipe, we are making Carpaccio di Salmone. Now I'm pretty sure that this recipe is calling for a raw, like sashimi style salmon. However, I could not find any sashimi safe salmon, so I'm going to be using some smoked salmon instead. I'm going to start by adding some olive oil, lemon juice, and salt to a bowl. And then I'm going to mix that up really good. I'm creating a bit of an emulsification here. As you can see, it has thickened quite a bit. Now that the mix has emulsified, I'm going to add some pink peppercorns. And now I'm going to add the salmon to my little emulsification here. Make sure that these are all coated. And then I'm going to cover it and let it rest for like 30 minutes. The salmon is done resting, so now it is time to plate. I'm going to start by just laying each piece of salmon on this plate. I'm going to take a bit of the reserve oil mixture and place that on top. I'm gonna grab a few of these pink peppercorns as well. I also have some roughly chopped parsley here for a garnish. And here is the completed Carpaccio di Salmone. Wow.
10 out of 10. Easy. Ripping. So good.
I want this every day. And the appearance, spot on, just missing the lemon.
I think this is easily a 10 out of 10 recipe.
Fantastic.
Bread. I personally think that this category has some of the most good looking recipes. We're starting with the one I am most excited about, not just for aesthetics, but probably because I could eat this almost every single day. Pull-apart bread. Now this recipe can be obtained by villagers or the message bottle, and in-game it requires 2 flour. However, as you can see, we have quite a bit more ingredients than that. Flour ain't gonna cut it. All right, I have put the water into the microwave. It is at 134. I've learned from a lot of comments on my YouTube videos, there's a lot of ways to kill yeast, and there's a lot of wrong ways to make bread. Now I'm moving into the realm of correct ways to make bread, which is getting an instant thermometer and measuring exactly between 110 and 120 Fahrenheit for the yeast. We got a packet of active dry yeast. We're gonna feed it with about a tablespoon of sugar. I'll see you in like 1 second, but I'm gonna let this bloom for 5 minutes. So the yeast is bloomed, it's like foamy-ish. So now we're gonna throw a bunch of stuff into the stand mixer. So I have a cup of room temperature milk, 3 tablespoons of melted butter, 2 lightly whisked eggs, and some salt. Now I'm going to add in some bread flour. I'm not really sure what the difference is between all-purpose and bread flour. I'm gonna go ahead and add 2 cups. And now I'm going to mix this on low for like a minute, just to kind of incorporate that bread flour. All right, so the dough is partially mixed. I'm gonna go ahead and add in the bloomed yeast, as well as the rest of the bread flour, so another 2.5 cups of that. And now I'm going to knead it on medium for 4 to 5 minutes. Oh, the flour has escaped. Maybe we'll start low. If anybody knows why it keeps overflowing like that, please give me tips because it happens every time I try to do bread. So this dough has been kneaded for about 5 minutes. So I have this greased bowl and I have formed the dough into a smooth-ish ball. I'm going to cover it and let it rise for about 90 minutes. I'm also gonna prep the butter while we wait for the dough to rise. So I have 3 tablespoons of melted butter. I'm adding 2 tablespoons of parsley and 3 cloves of minced garlic. And then mixing that together. And now I'm just gonna set this aside for later. Okay, so the dough has risen quite a bit. It said to deflate the dough by pressing my fist into the middle. There we go. That is a very obvious fist. We have a lightly floured surface, and I'm gonna turn this out onto it and press it into a circle. All right, 12 even sections. So here I have one piece. It says to tuck and pinch the dough into a ball. That looks like a ball to me. Now let me do that 11 more times. Okay, there are my dough balls. So now I have a cast iron skillet greased with butter, and I'm just going to place these in there. And now I'm going to cover this and let it rise again for another hour. Okay, so the dough has officially done its second rise. Now I'm going to paint on some butter. Now I'm gonna put these in the oven for like 20 minutes. We'll see how it pulls apart.
Yeah.
I also have the butter on the side melted here. Just take one. Here, put that back. This is nice and fluffy. Now I'm gonna try it with some of the butter. The butter could use a little bit of salt, but the recipe said to use unsalted butter. But these are very good. I would say some of the best bread I've made.
I think so.
And it's just as aesthetic as it is in the game. So I'm gonna give this, I think, a 9 out of 10 turnips.
Same thing in my head. I'm gonna start mouthing the number before she says it so you can see how in sync we are. We should get married.
We'll see.
Okay.
Next up on our list, we have bread gratin, or I've been practicing my Japanese, so I was translating the Japanese name for it, and I think it's panguratan. I hope that's right. The in-game recipe calls for flour as well as whole wheat flour. I wasn't super sure how I was going to make this recipe, so I looked up the definition of au gratin. A gratin is any dish that is topped with cheese or breadcrumbs mixed with butter and then heated in the oven under the broiler until brown and crispy. All right, so the bread is out of the oven and it's a little crispy on the bottom and it's a little bit hard. So now I have to make essentially a bechamel sauce. It said to use whole milk, however, I don't have any extra. So I did a mixture of 50-50, half and half, and almond milk. I have no idea how that's gonna turn out. So we'll see. I have this heating on medium. I'm gonna go ahead and add about 4 tablespoons of butter. And now I'm going to add the flour and whisk it in. I'm going to add the milk in slowly and continue to whisk. I'm going to add in the cheddar and then continue to whisk until the milk comes to a boil. Now this may be a mistake, however, the dish appears to have mushrooms in it, and I have some uncooked mushrooms. So I'm just gonna see what happens if I just add it to the bechamel and let it cook in there. All right, while the bechamel is cooking, I'm gonna go ahead and try to hollow this out. Oh my God. Okay, it's very dense. I'm just gonna pull out some of this bread. I would widen this a little bit. However, I don't want to ruin it more than it already appears to be. So I'm just gonna hollow it out. All right, I think this looks pretty close to the Animal Crossing recipe. Let's go ahead and fill it up. All right, so this thickened up pretty nicely. I did also add some salt and pepper. Now over to the bread bowl and add in the bechamel. And it does appear to have like little pieces of bread shoved in there as well. And this is going to go into a pan and then go into the oven for like 10-15 minutes until the top is starting to brown. The bread is not as dense as I had thought initially.
Tastes like a creamy soup bread bowl.
Yeah, I think the gratin is carrying a little bit. I think I got the imagery pretty exact on it. Taste-wise, I'm gonna dock a couple points because the bread is just like dense. I would prefer just a fluffy white bread. 7 out of 10 parsnips. What?
I called it too.
You did 7? We're moving on to pizza now. There are a few different kinds of pizza in Animal Crossing, but we are specifically making the Margherita pizza. This in-game recipe calls for 3 flour and 2 tomato, but as per usual, we have a couple more ingredients here, including mozzarella and basil. First, we're gonna make the pizza dough. We already have some yeast blooming over here. It's about done, so I can go ahead and add in the other ingredients. Salt, olive oil, and then 2.5 cups of flour. And now I'm gonna mix this on low for a couple minutes. All right, this dough has been mixed. Now I'm going to form it into a ball and once again, let it rise. So the pizza dough has been resting and I'm gonna pour it out onto here and split it into 2. Now I'm gonna cover these and let them rest for another 10-ish minutes. I have this little pizza wood thing and it said to sprinkle it with semolina, which I'm not completely sure what that is, but I do have some cornmeal that I'm going to use instead. And I believe this is just to help the pizza slide off. And I have my pizza dough here that I have stretched into a roughly 10-inch circle. And I'm drizzling some olive oil and spreading that around. Now I have the pizza sauce, which is just some crushed San Marzano tomatoes. And then I have some Parmigiano Reggiano that I'm going to sprinkle on top. I also have some fresh mozzarella, and I'm gonna add about 4 ounces. And I also picked some basil fresh from the garden. And here's the finished pizza. And I'm actually going to cook this on the grill outside. So let's go. I have a pizza stone in the grill and it's at about 550 degrees. Oh yeah, wow, that was easy. All right, this is gonna cook for like 7 minutes. Wow, look at that. Nice. There is the pizza. This is the second pizza. Oh yeah. There it goes. That looks really good. Here is the beauty. I'm gonna take it inside and let it cool down, and then we're gonna give it a taste test. The image for the Animal Crossing, I did not realize until like a minute ago that it appears to have slices of tomato on it. It also appears to have black olives of some sort, so we're gonna ignore that. It is pitch black on the bottom, but it doesn't taste burnt.
The herbs are kind of fighting back against any taste of char too.
So I have my second pizza here. I kept this one in at a slightly lower temperature for slightly less time, and the bottom of it looks really good.
For some reason that tasted better.
Well, that was delicious. I've never made pizza on a grill before. I think the charcoal elevates it quite a bit, so I think it's gonna get a 8 out of 10 turnips.
First differentiation, I'm going 7.
7.
Yeah. really good. I want it saucier and meatier.
Now we are venturing into the crepe territory. I have never in my life made a crepe. I have heard it is difficult, but today I am making mushroom crepes. In game, this recipe requires 2 flour, a round mushroom and a skinny mushroom. Now it's kind of up in the air what these mushrooms could be. However, I decided to go with brown and white mushrooms because that was what was available at the grocery store. The image kind of looks like it has a bechamel sauce on it, so I think I'm gonna go with a Gruyere mushroom sauce, 2 cups of whole milk, 3 tablespoons of melted butter, and then I'm just gonna reuse this bowl, 4 eggs, half a teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I'm not sure how this vanilla extract is gonna pair with the mushroom. Now I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon of granulated sugar, and then 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. The recipe says that I can use a blender to blend this all together, but it's a little bit too much for my blender, so I'm just gonna use a regular whisk.
12 seconds later.
I'm a little worried about being able to get all the chunks out of this, so I actually might do this in parts in my blender. Oh yeah, that is a smooth batter. I will say that is pretty efficient. So here is the finished batter, and it says to refrigerate it for 30 minutes. So I'm just gonna cover it and stick it in the fridge and let it sit. Next up, we have the bechamel sauce, which I think is gonna be the easiest part of this recipe. So let's go over to the stove. All right, so I'm gonna heat up 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm gonna go ahead and add about half a cup of onions. And I'm gonna cook these until they're softened, which is gonna be about 3 minutes. So this recipe calls for dried thyme, and it turns out I actually don't have any. I thought I did, but I don't. So I'm gonna use oregano instead. And then it says to add 2 fresh garlic cloves, and then a teaspoon of dried thyme, AKA oregano. And that was more than a teaspoon. It says to food process 3/4 of the mushrooms, but I'm not doing that. Now this, to me, seems like an excessive amount of mushrooms, but it said to put 1.5 pounds of mushrooms in here. So that's what we're doing. I'm gonna cook for like 5 minutes until these start to soften. We're gonna melt this butter. We have the Le Gruyere, Switzerland. So to this pot, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of flour. Stir that in. And now I'm going to add in some milk. All right, so this has been whisked, and now I'm going to slowly add in the cheese until it's all melted. I'm gonna stir consistently because I don't want the cheese to burn or overcook in any way, because that can cause chunks in the sauce. And now the filling is done, so now I'm going to tackle the crepes. All right, so I have the pan here heating up on medium-low heat, and I'm gonna read the instructions because I have a feeling my first try is going to be very focused. So the instructions say to heat an 8-inch frying pan over medium-low heat, and then pour about 1/4 a cup of batter into the pan, tilting the pan immediately from side to side to form an even circle. Cook about 1 minute per side or until lightly browned, and then remove from heat and stack until ready to serve. It doesn't say to spray the pan, but I'm going to. Let's do my first attempt. All right, now I have to attempt to flip this. It's kind of ripping. How am I supposed to do this? Is this 8 inches? Oh, this is a 10-inch frying pan. All right, this is a scrap. All right, hopefully this will cook a little bit better. It's got a little bit more batter because I do have a 10-inch pan. Oh man, it's breaking again. All right, I think this is another scrapped one. A little over 1/4 of a cup. Do that. This one appears to be possibly a success. Let's see if I can flip it. Oh yeah. Oh! Ignore that. All right, first crepe done. And then I'm not exactly sure how this is supposed to be folded, but it looks like a triangle. And now a little bit of the bechamel. I will say this is a little overcooked because I had to reheat it. Try to make it look as lore accurate as possible. Yeah, that looks kind of gross. And now I'm gonna top it with 3 more mushrooms. I think it looks pretty close, but let's give it a taste. I don't know if I've had crepes enough to know if it's a good crepe. I think it tastes good.
It's a pretty good crepe.
I think the crepe is nice and soft. The edges are a bit crispy. I'm not sure if the edges of a crepe are supposed to be crispy or not, but these are. The mushrooms are really good, and the sauce on top, even though the texture is a little off, it still tastes really good.
Yeah.
Aesthetics-wise, it's meh. Taste-wise, delicious.
I think like crepes are a really intimidating thing to cook, and I think you did a really good job for your first ever time.
I think I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
8.
I was gonna do 8.
Oh, come
and then
on!
I was like, the mushrooms are a little too big, so I'm gonna have to give it 1 point less.
She felt that synchronization and she actively denied it.
I did. So it is a new day and we are on the last bread recipe, but one of the most exciting ones in my opinion, fruit-topped pancakes. Now I am like 99% sure these are not just any regular pancake. These are Japanese souffle pancakes. It requires 2 flour, an orange, a pear, a peach, an apple, and a cherry. One of the tricky things about a souffle pancake that I have read at least is that you have to work kind of fast because it can deflate over time. So I'm gonna start by chopping up the fruits first and then move on to the actual batter. I'm essentially going to be making a fruit salad for the top of this. So I'm starting by peeling off the skin of the fruits. So now we're moving on to the batter. All of this has been measured out on a kitchen scale because from what I've heard, things have to be pretty exact for this batter to go correctly. And I am linking all the recipes below, so if you want to see the exact measurements, you can go look at that. Baking soda, some sugar, milk, vanilla, eggs, and cake flour, which is essentially all-purpose flour with a little bit of cornstarch in it. So the first thing I'm going to do is separate the egg whites and yolks. And now the recipe says to partially freeze the egg whites, so I'm gonna stick these in the freezer for 15 minutes. Now it says to add 23 milliliters of whole milk, which I calculated is about 1.5 tablespoons, as well as 1/4 a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now I'm going to whisk this, and now I'm going to sift the cake flour, as well as the baking powder. This is nice and whisked. I'm going to set this aside until the egg whites are ready. So I have my partially frozen egg whites here. I'm going to add them to this bowl. And now I'm going to hand whisk. I don't know the reasoning behind having to partially freeze the egg whites. So if anybody has any ideas, please leave a comment. I guess it helps make the meringue fluffier, or maybe it helps it whisk easier? I have no idea. Okay, so the egg whites are frothy and opaque, and now I'm going to start slowly adding in the sugar, about 1/3 of it at a time. All right, so I whisked until stiff peaks, which you can see those peaks in there. Now I'm going to take 1/3 of this meringue and add it to the egg yellow mixture and whisk that together. Now I'm going to take half of the remaining meringue and add it in. Now I'm going to carefully fold with the whisk to try to avoid breaking up as many of those air bubbles as possible. All right, now we're gonna take this batter over to the stove. So I have a nonstick pan here. I'm gonna start by spraying it. I think I might be able to fit 2 pancakes on here at a time. I'm gonna start by doing 1 scoop each. Okay, I'm moving this to a burner stove because I feel like it gets it hot a lot faster. And I'm going to add a 2nd scoop and a 3rd scoop. Now I'm going to add about a tablespoon of water. Oh my. That is a little hot. Turning down the temp and then cover to steam. I see why I had a problem. I had it on high, not on low. Okay, hopefully that does not cause a problem. And it looks like they're burning, so I'm going to flip them and see what they look like. Oh gosh, okay. That's not ideal. All right, let's try this again. So I'm setting the flame to as low as it'll go. Doing a little spray. 1, 2, 2nd scoop, 2nd scoop. I'm going to add the water. That's a much better sound. Now I'm going to set the lid on the pan and let it steam on low for 6 minutes. I was supposed to have some additional batter at this point. However, I used it all on the burnt ones. So we're just gonna go with it. I'm gonna replace the lid and steam for another 5 minutes. So we have the final result. They aren't very fluffy, I will say. At least they're like not burnt. I have to dress it with some freshly made whipped cream, which I'm gonna put in the center to make it look a little fluffier. Oh, why did it flip? Come back. Okay, it's just kind of liquefying in there, so maybe the pancakes are a little too hot for that. Everything is going wrong. We have the fruit. I'm going to add 1 of each. I also have some maple syrup, so I'm going to add that as well. Anyway, here's the pancake. Let's do this side. It looks a little nicer over here. Yay! Drew, come on over.
Oh boy.
It's going to be really good. All right,
I'm ready.
keep your eyes closed. Okay. There it is. Souffle pancake.
Nice.
It's really fluffy. It was whipped cream in the center. It completely liquefied. It's gone.
Funky really wants to see.
He can't see. He is.
Oh my god.
He tripped.
He tripped. He just wants to be in the frame. Those don't look bad.
We'll see how they taste.
That's not bad.
For the amount of effort I put into this, it's bad.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, I am going to give this a solid 3 out of 10.
Ooh.
The taste is not bad. I'm just really mad about the amount of effort that I put into it and the result that I got.
I gave it a 5.
Wow.
I thought it was pretty yummy.
He didn't have to make it,
It's
though.
definitely not souffle risen, but it's souffle flavor. Soup flavor.
Okay. Now we are moving on to desserts, and we are starting with a super cute carrot cake. And the reason that I picked this one out is because of the super cute little carrot on the top. How could I say no? In Animal Crossing, this is a basic cooking recipe that requires 1 flour, 1 sugar, and 1 carrot. I don't frequently get to have carrot cake unless I make it myself, because a lot of times carrot cake is made with nuts, and I am, unfortunately, allergic to nuts. So I'm very excited to make this carrot cake. Here I have my beautiful slice of carrot cake, and now I have 2 different cups of icing reserved because I have to make the carrot that goes on top. I'm going to start with the orange. Here I have some red food coloring and then also some yellow. I have some toothpicks that I'm going to use to mix the color in, and then I think just 1 drop of red. Now let's see what kind of orange this makes. I need a better mixing utensil than this toothpick. I think I'm gonna add 1 more drop of red because it's kind of yellow. That is nice and orange. The green is a pretty bright lime green. So I don't know how close I'm going to be able to achieve to that, but I'm going to do my best. So we're gonna start once more here with a large amount of yellow, some blue. And I'm gonna start by just adding a tiny bit because this stuff is pretty pigmented. And here is the green color. It's actually pretty spot on, so I'm not going to change anything about this. Now I need to get some piping bags and create the carrot. Here is my cake. I'm going to start by doing the leaves on the top. Okay, I kind of messed it up right there. There. And now for the carrot. Ooh, that's pretty good. It's not like perfect, but that's really good, I think. I love that. That is so cute. I can definitely feel the texture of the carrots, but I can't taste the carrots like at all, which I'm kind of surprised about. I think it's the icing is covering up a lot of that carrot flavor, or maybe it's the sugar. I don't particularly like cake that much, but for a cake, this is really good, and I would definitely grab a slice of it. I think I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. It is very good. Next up, exclusively for the extended version of this YouTube video, we are going to be making the Roost sable cookie, and that is going to include a little craft as well. If you are a Patreon or YouTube member, you get extended versions of YouTube videos, early access, discounts on our shop, and a lot more really cool stuff, so go check that out. It is time for brown sugar cupcakes. This is a basic cooking recipe in Animal Crossing that requires 1 brown sugar and 1 whole wheat flour. Now I have never made cupcakes with whole wheat flour before, but I'm pretty excited to see how it's gonna turn out. So without further ado, let's get to it. Now I didn't have any what I assume is little mint leaves to put on top, so I got some edible flowers. These are borage flowers. I feel like I got the look of it pretty good, if I do say so myself. I really like the icing. It's like a subtle sweet. It's not too overpowering. The cupcake itself is definitely not overly sweet either. I think for me, this will get a solid 6 out of 10. Not because it's bad, just because it's not for me necessarily. That is it for the Animal Crossing recipes. Let me know down in the comments which video game I should make food from next, and I'll see you after your next quest, adventurer.